All right, so I just did a video on Miss International Queen, Making America Great Again, #1 in Ladyboys. And we know that Donald Trump owned the beauty pageants for a long time and had a TV show called The Apprentice. And just today, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal, The Beauty Queens of MAGA World. From cabinet secretaries to state legislators, many women, quote unquote, in today's GOP have one thing in common. That's right. We know what that is. They got their start in public life by winning pageants. Oh, the pageant. So we're going to talk about pageants today. But these pageants go back to the ancient world. They would parade the androgynes around. They worked in the temples. They were part of the government. So Kristi Noem was South Dakota's 1990 Snow Queen. And currently, Kristi Noem is the Ice Queen. It's just facial feminization, tons of surgery, tons of makeup, all the glitter, fairly ripped, low body fat, lean muscle mass, lack of a Q angle. Now, they don't really want these kind of photos out there when they're not standing in the perfect pose. Adam's apple, low body fat. I mean, give them food. They're starving these people to death. It's not an anorexic woman, all right? It's something else. It's the Ice Queen. And we know the ice represents the other realm. Lindsay Halligan, one-time Miss Colorado, appointed by President Trump. See, basically, Trump owned the pageants, and then he could kind of find people. You know, he could find the androgynes that he would take under his wing and get them involved in the MAGA movement. There's some masculine features happening here. I think that one's pretty obvious. Similar to Taylor Swift, we see the Adam's apple. As Seinfeld once said, that's a man hand, right? These are queens. That'll be my code word. Tall, very tall, a little too tall, but it's basically just as tall as these guys here. Should have been a football player. Wearing the red. It's just like in The Matrix. It's the woman in red, the queen. It's the Red Queen. Halligan's turn in the spotlight has paled beside the glow of another pageant veteran, Eric Kirk, the widow, the grieving widow. Now, it shouldn't be too hard to pull off the grieving widow routine and get all kinds of sympathy, but Eric Kirk has actually failed to pull that off. A lot of people have turned against Eric Kirk. Even people who believe the entire narrative have turned against Eric Kirk. Taller than this guy, low body fat, lean, lots of makeup. The magic's in the makeup. Miss Arizona. Looks like a wild tiger. Not many women have that predatory vibe. Hand on the hips. Look at the pelvis. Very narrow pelvis, I might say, with broad shoulders. Highly feminized, all smoothed out with the long blonde hair. High heels. Now, Charlie Kirk is 6'5", all right? So it's very similar to Taylor Swift. So when Taylor Swift, who's 5'11", stands next to Travis Kelce, who's 6'5", it looks like a fairly normal-sized woman. The makeup and the hair and all that stuff. And so we have the same optical illusion here, and they both basically worked for Trump. There's Eric hanging out with a drag queen. See, this person doesn't strike me as being pretty. Again, the low body fat, the Trump beauty pageant. Silicone implants on the chest, shoulders wider than the hips. It's like a predator stalking its prey, who is the American public. They can fake the camel toe. I think even normal people have noticed there's something off, and they don't quite understand what it is. So like the article said, the pageants teach these people basically how to become actors. They learn the art of rhetoric. They learn how to persuade people in their public speaking. They learn how to walk around on the stage and have a certain presence when they speak. And these people learn this in the pageants. All the world's a stage. The uncovered shoulder to show that it's not a woman. The magic's in the makeup. See, this one pulls it off, but still kind of funny looking if you think about it. And why would a funny looking woman win Miss Arizona? I wouldn't even want to go out to coffee with this person. It's like a wild animal out in the desert. It's a highly feminized, it's an androgyne, all right? This is what they look like. I saw one the other day on the beach doing a photo shoot, and this young person here is Eric Kirk, who was a tomboy. I played basketball since I was 5, and now you're Miss Arizona? Really? How does that happen? Played for the NCAA Division II Regis University, a Jesuit university. Super tomboy, didn't like dresses, but now you're Miss Arizona. Everyone thought I was a little boy. Okay, so that's a quote. That's what Eric said. Everyone thought I was a little boy. They didn't see Eric as a tomboy. They saw her as an actual boy. People thought she was a boy. Why is that? I'm asking the women out there, did people used to think you were a little boy when you were a little girl? Everyone who saw me thought I was a little boy. I wonder why that is. See, once you look beyond the makeup, you can see masculine bone structure. They're wearing a costume, all right? It's a costume every day because they're all gods in drag. I was just a baller, quote unquote. Is this something out of a Stephen King movie? Like a little boy flying a plane? Is this some plot in like a horror movie? Hijacks a plane? Don't look into the eyes of that child. This is like Children of the Corn or something. This is horrifying. This is like Chucky, all right? This is Chucky hijacking a plane. I always had that girly girl hidden within me. Oh, really? So again, to the women out there, did you have a girly girl hidden within you, or were you just kind of just a girl and that was just normal? And so the tomboy, the super tomboy, who everyone thought was a boy, suddenly turns out to be Miss Arizona. Really? Working for Trump, and is now the Jesuit CEO of Turning Point USA. Sometimes a rod is just a rod, but sometimes it's not. And then one day Eric discovered, oh, I can curl my hair and I can put on the mascara. I can put on the makeup because the magic's in the makeup. I come from a great family that has very amazing genetics. Well, what exactly makes those genetics so amazing? Please tell us more. And most of them don't say things like this. I think this one kind of let the cat out of the bag. Eric Kirk's basically admitting, yeah, I used to be a little boy. This is like Disarm. At her husband's funeral last month, aka propaganda political rally event, she demonstrated preternatural poise, surpassing what is normal or usual, extraordinary, extraordinary, transcending the natural or material order, supernatural. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Preternatural is also used to describe gifts such as immortality possessed by Adam and Eve before the fall of man. Adam Kadmon, the primordial sample. Primordial androgyne. In the early modern period, the term was used by scientists to refer to abnormalities and strange phenomena of various kinds that seemed to depart from the norms of nature. Yes, Trump would become the pageant world's king when he bought the organization that owns the Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and Miss Universe competitions. So Trump used to own these pageants, and he was involved, and he would go there, and he would find people. It was a recruiting ground for these MAGA influencers. That's where he met Eric Kirk and all these others. More than once, contestants complained about Trump going backstage when they were undressed, something he did not deny. I'll go backstage before a show and everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. No men anywhere. Now, does that include Trump? And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant and I'm inspecting it. Oh, he's inspecting the naked participants. There's Trump with the queens. There's a queen. Now, again, Trump is 6'2". Melania, I think the official height is 5'11", but seems more like a 6-footer. This one's got to be a 6-footer, 6'1". This one's a 6-footer. So he's basically there standing with a bunch of 6-footers. Feminist icon Gloria Steinman and journalist Diane Sawyer both competed in pageants. So did Sarah Palin. You're telling me you were in a beauty pageant? Is that correct? Was it for blind people? Gloria Steinem with the Adam's apple. Feminist icon. They Live. Is this an outtake from They Live? Now we understand where feminism comes from. Those are the beauty queens of MAGA world. There's many others. It's like a transpocalypse boot camp. They learn how to act like women in public, and then they can progress to the higher level of working in MAGA, working in the government or the media. Prepares them for a life of service to Satan, and they can learn how to lie, and they can kind of sear their conscience. Because if you want to deceive people, you can't really have a conscience. They used to think I was a little boy, playing basketball and flying a plane. Now I'm just another mega queen at Turning Point USA. The demon in me is the demon in you. I give this smile over to you.
Okay, can anybody explain this to me? This man right here, Paolo Zempoli, the Italian modeling agent who sponsored Melania Trump's visa to come to the United States to begin modeling in New York City. Also the founder of ID Models in New York City, and would eventually go on to make ID Models an international modeling agency. And shortly after he sponsored Melania Trump's visa to come to the United States to work as a model in New York City, he would introduce Melania to Donald Trump. And Jeffrey, before he passed away, claimed he was the one who introduced Melania and Donald Trump, and shared some very detailed information about the first time that Melania and Trump did the deed on his plane. We obviously don't know if it was Jeffrey or Paolo who introduced Melania to Donald Trump, but it doesn't really matter because they're all in the same social circle anyway. Paolo, Melania, Trump, Jeffrey, Ghislaine, all hung around the same clubs and went to the same parties together. What I would like to know is how a career modeling agent has now somehow become a United Nations diplomat and is now working in our current administration, especially since his work with the UN consisted of collaborating with Ghislaine Maxwell's oceanic nonprofit environmental cause Terramark. We all remember the Terramark project, right? This nonprofit that Ghislaine, likely, and Jeffrey founded to kind of look like good people in the world. If you've watched Ghislaine Maxwell's TED Talk about the Terramark project, you know that this was just a cover to make themselves look like they cared about anybody and the planet. As you can see right here, the Terramark logo looks exactly like the logo that we have seen in many, many photos. Like between 2013 and 2014, Ghislaine and Paolo, who used to party together with the richest of the rich, were now sitting together at United Nations meetings. Not only is he a career modeling agent, not only is he a UN diplomat, not only has he worked directly with Ghislaine Maxwell, he's also a frequent guest at Mar-a-Lago. And furthermore, in March, whenever Trump was doing the weird takeover of the Kennedy Center, Paolo Zempoli was placed on the board of the Kennedy Center with Trump and named a special envoy for global partnerships. The guy who allegedly introduced Melania and Trump was associated with Jeffrey and Ghislaine, was associated with multiple co-conspirators within Jeffrey's case and Ghislaine's case, and was a big boss in the world of international modeling, an avenue that Jeffrey and Ghislaine would often use to prey upon girls and women. When we put all that together, I think we can put him on the list of people who would benefit from these files never being released. Just from that very surface level glance into Paolo Zempoli that we just did, I just feel like there could be some conflicts of interest. And I fear what I will find if I continue to dig deeper. I just simply cannot figure out how Paolo made it from point A to point B. From a career modeling agent to a UN diplomat working in the administration. But what I think is very interesting about Paolo shows us that there are shadowy figures in this administration who we don't see regularly, who we don't talk about regularly, who would absolutely benefit from those files never being released. Since posting my last video about Paolo Zempoli, I have received an influx of DMs from young women who have alleged to have been R-worded by Paolo Zempoli. If you've not watched the first video that I posted about this man, please go back and watch it and come back. You'll be able to find it in the playlist that you're watching this video in. I do have a lot of new information that I want to share with you guys, but I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm not going to be detailing any individual experiences from any individual woman who alleges to have been R-worded by Paolo Zempoli at this moment. The reason is not because I don't believe these women's stories. Many of these women sent undeniable evidence that they're telling the truth. I simply value these women's personal safety as well as the integrity of the legal options that they are currently exhausting. We're going to speak in a very broad language so that we can still raise the alarm for other women without singling out anyone or putting them on anyone's radar. I will only be sharing what I have permission to share and what of that information I feel is appropriate to talk about right now. I understand since I am not bringing screenshots right at this moment, you do not have to believe me if you don't want to. If you've been here for a while, I think you know how I roll, but no hard feelings. I am going to be showing you guys receipts for things that I have found that tie into this, but I'm not going to speak about any individual circumstance. One thing I think is important to know, a great deal of these women who reached out to me who have been allegedly victimized by Paolo Zempoli, and I have to say allegedly, it's not because I do not believe these victims, but a large amount of these women have done everything that society requires of them to be considered a credible victim. making a police report, going to the hospital to get an exam, collected evidence, gotten lawyers involved. They have just not been successful at being able to actually get themselves justice. And there could be many reasons for that. It could be because he is a UN diplomat. Perhaps he has diplomatic immunity, or perhaps he has ties with powerful people in New York City. One of the things that I've been given permission to share is this photo that was sent to me by a victim of Paolo that was taken on the night that she was R-worded by Paolo. And just kind of take a look around at what you see. If we go over to Paolo Zempoli's Getty Images page, we can see this very similar looking place. And here's another photo with that very similar looking room. Yes, this is Paolo Zempoli's, well, one of his properties in New York. He regularly throws parties that host wealthy and powerful people. Because of the sheer volume of parties and photos from parties in this property that Paolo was throwing, it was not too difficult to find it online. Not to mention it's marked on Google Maps as Palazzo Zempoli, so it kind of gave him away. And if we go to the Google Maps Street View, we can see back in September of 2013, he had his name plastered all over. We can go forward to 2014 and he still has his name tag on his property. I'm just saying, it's public information, people. Please do not get on my case. So now that we know that this is absolutely Paolo Zempoli's property and where more than one woman who was victimized was taken to be victimized, let's talk about a couple strange things that I saw. So on the front of his property is this little blue sign and it says WATO. There's a better look at it from 2019, another from 2017. WATO stands for We Are the Oceans, which is an organization that Paolo presents for the United Nations that partnered with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffries Terramar in 2013. Ghislaine would often use the phrase "We are the ocean" when discussing Terramar, her nonprofit environmental oceanic organization that was literally only created to repair her and Jeffries' reputation. From the Kit Kat Club in '98 to the UN in 2013. Now, if we go forward to July of 2021, you can see that emblem is still there outside of Paolo Zempoli's home. But if we go to August of 2022, we can see the We Are the Ocean emblem has been removed. And perhaps it's just a coincidence, but just about 6 weeks before this was taken, Ghislaine was sentenced to prison. If we look at the most recent Street View available in 2024, we can see the sign stayed off, but still had a lot of questions about this property. The brilliant Lily Marston went and looked up the complaint records of the New York City Department of Buildings. And we can see that in 2018, there were complaints because guests were staying 2 or 3 nights. There were constant people in and out, just a revolving door of people. Paolo Zempoli is named directly for causing the chaos. In 2023, there were complaints made due to Paolo Zempoli allegedly running an illegal hotel out of his property. He was accused of converting his home into a hotel and housing a bunch of people in it. Okay, now follow along with me here. Right now, we know this man has allegations of SA and R word that have allegedly occurred at that property. There are complaints being filed that Paolo Zempoli has turned this property into a hotel where multiple people are being housed, and there's a revolving door of people constantly going in and out. Keep those in the back of your mind. In 2021, Politico released an article about Paolo Zempoli and the fact that he was allegedly having an affair on his partner of 17 years, the mother of his child. Allegedly, the woman that Paolo was having an affair with found out that he was being dishonest about the nature of his relationship with his partner of 17 years and the mother of his child, and she proceeded to break it off and threaten to tell the missus. Text messages from Paolo Zempoli to the alleged mistress were sent to Politico, in which Paolo warns this woman to stay away from him and his family, that she was nothing more than a working girl who he had to pay the whole time. What a strange thing to say. Now, the alleged mistress denies ever being a working girl of any kind and that they had a consensual relationship until she found out the truth of the nature of his relationship with his partner. According to her, when she found out the truth, she was verbally attacked and threatened with her reputation being destroyed. Here's another photo from a victim that I've been given permission to share. A red situation room in Paolo Zempoli's home. Very interesting. So if we put this all together, Paolo Zempoli has been accused of SA and R word, specifically at this property, a property where he frequently holds parties for wealthy and powerful people. His neighbors are complaining about an illegal hotel he's running out of his property and how there's a revolving door of people constantly coming in and out. He was accused of having an affair, and his first retort was to call the mistress a working girl. Not to mention that he's a modeling agent who has a history of engaging with his clients. Not to mention that he worked with Ghislaine Maxwell. Not to mention his multiple connections to multiple figures in the flight logs. He's also a United Nations diplomat who is working in our current administration. Like, when we put that all together, what are we supposed to do with that? It just appears that something dark is going on behind the scenes, behind closed doors. I feel like we have a lot more to uncover and that we've really only scratched the surface with this guy. To end this, I just want to say thank you so much to the women who reached out to me and felt comfortable enough sharing their stories with me so we can begin to sound the alarm so other young women are not put in the same situation. As I make sense of how we got from Milan to the White House, I really started looking at both Paulo and Donald's business models. And it's very interesting because both of these men used the exact same architecture to build their empires. Paulo and Trump were nearly in stride with one another when it came to business. Once Paulo brought Melania to the United States, he founded ID Models, which he turned into an international modeling agency. And right around the same time, Donald Trump would create Trump Models, which he would attempt to turn into an international modeling agency as well. Another thing that Donald Trump and Paulo's business empires would have in common would be the real estate aspect. Donald Trump had the Trump Organization, which is how he built his real estate empire, and Paulo would work at the Trump Organization briefly while he was also managing ID Models after he had introduced Donald Trump to Melania. Donald Trump encouraged Paulo to create his own real estate empire, thus teaming up with Paulo to create Paramount Realty Group. So as you can see, they were very much in the same market when they were actively building their empires. Paramount Realty Group was a shamelessly exploitative business model. What Paulo would do is he would take models who were represented by him through ID Models and use them to help him sell expensive and luxurious homes. The reason that he did this is because he believed that young, beautiful models would sell more than buttoned-up professionals. Despite both Paulo and Donald Trump raking in tons of cash between both of their modeling ventures and their real estate ventures, which sometimes had crossover, they were regularly being sued for not paying their models appropriately or not paying their models at all, and just keeping the profit that the models make that are signed underneath them for themselves. Both ID Models and Trump Models would be expected to socialize around wealthy and powerful friends of both Paulo and Donald under the guise of it being an opportunity to advance their career. But in reality, Donald and Paulo were just exploiting the access they had to these young women. Between ID Models and Trump Models, everything was very shady from top to bottom. Exploitation at every avenue, including when these young girls were just trying to do the jobs that they signed up for. Model, work with photographers. Just for one example, we can use the photographer Terry Richardson, who was hired to specifically work for Trump Models, but is fairly well known within the modeling industry. Here's a photo of Terry Richardson and Ivanka Trump, which will probably send shivers down your spine when you hear what Terry Richardson has been accused of. Back in the early to mid 2000s, I believe it was 2004, there was a 22-year-old model who was brought from Spain to New York City to work for Trump Models. She would unfortunately go on to be SA'd by Trump Models photographer Terry Richardson. And horrifically, Terry Richardson would photograph the entire time that he was violating her. This young model, who literally came to the United States because she believed she had a chance at having a modeling career, also recalled other employees cheering on Terry as he violated her, and some were even taking out their cameras and taking photos as well. The morning after this 22-year-old model was violated by Terry and other employees at Trump Models, she reported this to a manager, and she was told by the managers at Trump Models that Terry Richardson's behavior was common, and due to his prominence in the industry, she should overlook what he did to her and continue to work with him. After this deeply traumatizing event, this young woman would fly back to Spain from the United States, and to her horror, she would later find out that not only did Terry Richardson photograph her being violated, but he published these photos of him violating her into a photo gallery lookbook, and it had been sold to a private collector. So just really disgusting, exploitative, dirty business happening underneath friends Donald Trump and Paolo Zampoli. While diving into how Paulo and Donald Trump ran their modeling agencies alongside their real estate companies back in the day, I stumbled across an article that was in the Gawker archive. In this article, Paolo Zampoli insinuates that his models that are signed to him are working girls, amongst many other things. But there was one woman's name in this article that caught my eye. So this article starts out discussing the exploitative business model of of Paramount Realty Group that is owned by Paolo Zampoli. This article also reveals to us that the 2001 photo of Bill Clinton taken with Paolo Zampoli and a young model was one of Paolo Zampoli's ID models, whom he introduced to Bill Clinton. But what really caught my eye about this article was this line right here. ID model Ariana Musinska also spent time as arm candy for alleged masseuse fan Jeffrey Epstein. If that name sounds familiar to you, you have probably seen her photo before. Because Ariana wasn't just arm candy to Jeffrey. She was an ID model signed by Paolo Zampoli, who would go on to be named as a co-conspirator in the 2008 sweetheart deal of Jeffrey's. Ariana Musinska, sometimes known as Ariana Ross, was just 18 years old when Jeffrey flew her from Poland to Florida for her to work at his Palm Beach mansion, and she would also have a career opportunity in modeling for Paolo Zampoli. While Ariana was working for Jeffrey and modeling for Paolo, she was Jeffrey's scheduler for his massage appointments and would also recruit other young girls to come be victimized by Jeffrey, which is why she, along with 4 other women, were named as co-conspirators in Jeffrey's 2008 sweetheart deal. And like we've talked about before, a handful of teens and young women who started out being victimized by Jeffrey did go on to become complicit in his ring, but that does not take away the fact that they were victimized, nor does it minimize the harm that they caused to other young women and girls. Some of these situations are just nuanced and 2 things can be true at once. When this ID model turned co-conspirator for Jeffrey was deposed during the investigation before Jeffrey was given his sweetheart deal, she pled the 5th when investigators asked how the inner workings of Jeffrey's ring actually worked. But with all that being said, I feel like I'm seeing a disturbing pattern or familiarity between Donald Trump, Paolo Zampoli, Ghislaine, and Jeffrey, who just seem to be flying teens from all corners of the world to be exploited by them in some form or fashion. The act of what they're doing, the real estate cahoots, the double modeling agencies where they weren't properly paying their models, flying young girls in from overseas to serve whatever need they have, and all roads lead back to Jeffrey, in itself feels like a criminal conspiracy. And this is just a small portion of it, a fraction. That's without even talking about the involvement of like John Casablancas, Jean-Luc Brunel, Lex Wexner, and many other figures in the modeling industry who opened a gateway for women to be preyed upon. Like, there is such a volume of connections, businesses, foundations, and just information in general, but the glue that holds all of these co-conspirators together is the immense volume of defenseless human beings who were harmed on these creeps way to the top.
Man in the real estate business looking for model returns is making the unique move of turning to actual models. Diana Olick joins us from Manhattan with that story. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Carl. So if you're in the market for a, $14 million building that is, retail on the bottom, you get your residential on the top, 70 Green Street down here in Soho is probably for you. But in this very softening real estate market, you really got to have a little something extra to sell this stuff. And one real estate entrepreneur has come up with, shall we say, a new business model.
Paolo Zampoli is always surrounded by beautiful things. Beautiful women at his modeling agency.
Tall, blonde, beautiful, I think you're fine.
And beautiful real estate outside his Soho office. So it only made sense to combine the two.
Well, models are very driven, and modeling is a very difficult job. And as well as they're gorgeous ladies, they meet the most rich and powerful people of the world. And some of them, they keep this connection.
But Paolo has to be honest, it wasn't his idea.
Okay.
Yes, with my friend Donald.
What did he say to you?
Paolo, you're too good for modeling. You got to start real estate.
From Donald Trump's lips to supermodel Angie Everhart's ears, or something like that.
Runway, catwalk, real estate. I really don't see the tie-in, but you have to be good with people.
So Angie took the leap from the catwalks and the covers to the clients and the closings.
Does it make a difference to you that you're seeing a piece of real estate with a supermodel?
Absolutely.
There's a bathroom back here. Half bath.
Involving supermodels in the process really ensures that there's a commitment to the highest quality of clientele and of living.
Paolo now leaves his modeling business to others and focuses on his real estate business next door. 3 months ago, he joined New York powerhouse Douglas Elliman. He's got 6 model brokers and expects to have a dozen by next year.
I'm doing this because it's something different in my life, and I'm not always going to be a pretty face, something to rely on in the future.
All right, so they say you gotta have a gimmick if you want to get ahead, but Paolo says this is no gimmick, this is for real. The models take classes, 45 hours of studies, then they have to take the test to get their broker's license, and they gotta walk and show these buildings all day long. I guess it's not quite like the catwalk, but gotta do what you gotta do. Right, Becky?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a gimmick. It might draw some people in. I saw people paying attention around here when you were showing those pictures.
I'm telling you, Paolo Zampolli and Donald Trump have the same career path, and they're sitting in the same office today. There is a reason why Donald Trump has maintained such loyalty to this man. Perhaps it's because they are a mirror of one another. There is tangible evidence that Donald Trump and Paolo Zampolli were one of a handful of components who were actively running you know what kind of ring, specifically in New York and Florida. And the second those files are released, they will no longer be able to run from it. There is someone who was appointed to work in this current administration by the President of the United States who has a child with a woman who appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs when she was 17 years old. And a few months back, in June of 2025, this woman was arrested and placed on an immigration hold in Florida, despite the fact that she is a United Nations diplomat. I know that sounds crazy, but I promise it is not a hook. I have the receipts and the proof for everything. So take my hand, follow me down this rabbit hole because the situation's flying way too far under the radar. So this is Amanda Ungaro. She is the longtime partner and the baby mama of enemy of the channel, Paolo Zampolli. Boo, we've talked about him many, many times. If you haven't watched the videos I've made about Paolo Zampolli, you can go look at the playlist that you're watching this video in and you'll be able to find them. In a nutshell, Paolo Zampolli is the former ID Models modeling agent who brought Melania over to the United States originally to meet Donald Trump. He is also a part of this current administration. He is appointed to the board of the Kennedy Center. He is a United Nations diplomat, and he has also collaborated with Jeffrey and Ghislaine's fake oceanic environmental organization Terramar back in 2013 and 2014. On top of his association with Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey, he is and was very closely associated with many different co-conspirators of Jeffrey, including Jean-Luc Brunel, Brock Pierce, Bill Clinton, just to name a few. You can watch the other videos that I've made for more context, but today we're going to talk about Paolo Zampoli's longtime partner, Amanda Ungaro, who is the mother of their son. So Amanda and Paolo have been together for nearly 2 decades. They did break up briefly in 2018, but apparently were able to rekindle their relationship because according to their son, who apparently had a conversation with the president at this time, we all know who was president in 2018, according to their child, the president said that mom and dad needed to stay together, and that encouragement helped them to work things out. When Paolo and Amanda briefly broke up in 2018, Amanda filed for child support for the son that she and Paolo share. Paolo responded to the court saying that he did not owe Amanda any kind of child support for their son because they were technically never legally married. Don't we just love when the most powerful people in the government don't understand how the law works? When Amanda tried to leave in 2018, Paolo made a couple calls and put a flag on Amanda with immigration so that she could not fly back to her home country of Brazil with their child. So Amanda and Paolo began dating in 2006. Amanda was born in 1985, so she would have been around 2021. And Paolo was born in 1970, so he would have been around 36 or 37. If I'm doing my math correctly, they have a 15-year age gap. Their son was born in 2010. They briefly broke up in 2018. They got back together. The last thing that we have heard from Amanda is that in June of 2025, she was arrested on a felony and placed on an immigration hold in Florida, which is so wild to me because Paolo himself has posted on his social media photos with Homeland Security and shared his admiration for Homeland Security, despite the fact that he and his partner are immigrants. So this is where Jeffrey comes into the mix. So before Amanda was a United Nations ambassador, she was a model in Brazil, and she began living and modeling in the United States in the early 2000s. If we go to this exhibit in Jeffrey's case file, we'll find unredacted flight logs, and very oddly, Amanda Ungaro's name appears on Jeffrey's flight logs dating back to 2002, June of 2002. And she was on a flight with Jeffrey going to Paris alongside co-conspirator Jean-Luc Brunel. a co-conspirator of Jeffrey's who we know was a major player in modeling, especially during this time period. In June of 2002, Amanda would have been about 17 years old, and at the time, one of the agencies who was representing Amanda was ID Models, owned by Paolo Zampoli, whom she would just a few years later go on to have a romantic relationship and a child with. And I'm so curious about the circumstances that led Amanda to be in the situation that she is in today, because there's really such little information about her online. There's a lot of gaps in her timeline between modeling in Brazil to coming to the United States, modeling in Florida and New York City for Paolo Zampoli, to being on a plane with Jeffrey and Jean-Luc Brunel, to having a child with Paolo, to becoming a UN ambassador, and to now be in jail in Florida for a felony charge on an immigration hold. So you're probably wondering, how did a United Nations ambassador get arrested for a felony charge, and how can they be deported? In June of this year, Amanda Ungaro was arrested in Miami for practicing medicine without a license, grand theft, and organized scheme to defraud. She was arrested alongside a man who is a licensed physician in Brazil, but he is not licensed in any way, shape, or form in the United States. These two were allegedly running an unlicensed medical facility in Miami, and according to court documents, these two were performing liposuction, Botox, filler, ear surgeries, laser procedures, and backside injections. These two were also allegedly acquiring prescription medication illegally to give to their patients as well. In a complaint made against these two, I guess a woman went in and received 17 syringes of filler when that's not what she asked for, and was asked to pay $15,000 after her appointment, despite the fact that she didn't ask for that much filler. And within 3 days of her appointment, all of her filler had hardened in her lips, her jaw, and her cheek. She went back, where Amanda allegedly dissolved her filler, but this procedure ultimately didn't work, and this woman had to go to get help from a plastic surgeon to get the hardened filler out of her face. I don't know what the status of Amanda is right now. I don't know if she's in a jail in Florida. I don't know if she's been moved to an immigration detention facility in Florida. I don't know if she has been deported with or without her son. And while of course I do not defend Amanda for running a illegal medical facility and harming people, I do find it interesting that in 2018, Amanda tried to leave this relationship with Paolo, and she tried to take her son with her. As of June 2025, when the files started to be discussed again, Amanda is now in prison or no longer in the country. Something about all of this feels super off to me. So what's really interesting to me about Paolo Zampoli's social media, really since about 2020 to 2023, there has been kind of like a phase out of Amanda on his social media, less postings with Amanda, etc. And there are recent photos of them together, like this is a fairly recent photo of them together with Matt Gaetz. But there's also a plethora of photos of Paolo with other women looking very comfortable with them throughout his social media. But even as he posts photos with other women, Amanda is still seen going to events with him, being a family with them, etc., etc. But over the past year or so, we're starting to see photos of her face being like partially cropped out. Here's another photo where he cropped out Amanda from just a few months before she was arrested. I want to show you Paolo's social media from the beginning of June to like when she was arrested and put on an immigration hold to be deported. How you would never guess that anything's going wrong at all. In fact, he seems to be on vacation and celebrating along with his son, and no Amanda. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of the month. Here is Paolo on June 4th with a bunch of other women, and keep in mind, Amanda is arrested in Miami on June 18th of 2025. So we're gonna go up, and this was a gift that he gave to Donald Trump for like his birthday or something. So we're at June 16th, and then we go to June 17th, so that's the day before Amanda is arrested, and then nothing until June 20th, and he's posting with Pam Bondi, and then he's just posting normal for the rest of the month. Like nothing's going on, not even just for the rest of the month, for the rest of like until present time, everything appears to be just normal. There he is with Dr. Oz. There's he and his son. And as you can see, there's the 4th of July party at the White House or whatever. And Amanda is not there. Amanda's not in any of these photos at all, nor is there any mention of her past the date that she was arrested. And I just think that's very interesting, but he's like making it very clear that he has his son with him, and he's bringing his son with him everywhere. I'll show you guys a video that Paulo himself uploaded onto his social media of him driving around New York City with his son sitting on his lap.
Giovanni. Ay, ay, ay. Look, you're driving.
This is crazy.
New York City. Giovannino. King Giovanni.
I don't think any mother would willfully leave their child in the hands of Paolo Zampoli, regardless of the fact that that's his father. Like, that man is a maniac. I was also looking through some old archived videos from Paolo Zampoli's birthday parties.
Happy birthday, Paulo. I wish you the best and thank you to be part of our life, me and Giovanni. I love you.
Thank you very much, Paulo, for this fantastic evening, and appreciate Paulo's work and Paulo's friendship. And one day, if I ever get to run for office, I would like to have my campaign headquarters looking just like that.
And guess who we saw there? Vikram Chatwal, who we've done a video about. The man who told the press that at Ghislaine Maxwell's dinner party at her home, she told her guests that she had recently gone and flown a Black Hawk helicopter over Colombia and fired rockets into what she described as a terror camp. Like, of course these two partied together. Like, of course. The whole situation is just too weird from top to bottom. Like, I literally cannot stop thinking about it. It's like consuming me. Like, this situation is so abhorrent, and like there's like so much evidence to really begin pulling at the strings in mainstream media. And I really wish they would. So Amanda Angaro's mother sued Paolo Zampoli on September 5th of 2025 for custody and visitation of Amanda and Paulo's child, okay? But this case, Tanya versus Paolo Zampoli, does not exist on the county's website that it says it was filed in. And I understand this was like a little over a month ago. Maybe it's been resolved. I have no idea. But like literally, I have scoured public records websites. It does not exist. I cannot find it anywhere. I can't find any other information about this filing other than this right here on like law.com, law.org, whatever. Literally, what is going on? Okay, so I also found Amanda's family's social media. I've found it a while ago, but I'm not sharing it or anything like that. But it appears that like the most recently available photo on Amanda's mother's Facebook of Amanda goes back to 2012. So nothing recent. But now it looks like Amanda's mother is trying to get custody of the child that Amanda and Paulo have together. But there's also no paper trail of this filing other than the initial alert when the lawsuit was filed. There's no updates at all. I think I need to just start cracking my knuckles and start filing some Freedom of Information Act reports, starting with her Miami arrest. I just don't know. Maybe this is just Amanda's mother trying to get like grandparents' rights. Maybe something else is going on. Maybe Paulo is keeping the child from her as her daughter is MIA. I have no idea. But like, this just seemed like a relevant update to share. I'll keep you guys posted, because this is not a rabbit hole I'm coming up for air from until we can confirm that this woman is safe and sound. Because the way it's looking right now, it does not appear that she is safe and sound. Huge shout out to the follower who was able to find the index number to the lawsuit that Amanda Angaro's mother filed against Paolo Zampoli on September 5th of 2025, which led to them finding the full case docket of what has been going on with this case. Huge shout out to you. You're so amazing. I don't even know how you found it, but you found it. I am forever indebted to you. Okay, let's get into this. So here is the case. And as you can see, since this is a grandparent trying to get custody rights or visitation, both parents are listed as defendants. So this suit is being filed as a plenary action for visitation and custody. So it's not just like a family court petition. It is a full-scale lawsuit. This kind of like custody case would be filed when there are very complex issues at hand that go beyond the standard scope of a family court petition. So Tanya, Amanda Angaro's mother, filed for custody or visitation of the child that Amanda and Paulo share on September 5th of 2025. Tanya immediately provided the courts with exhibits that support her filing. It is also requested that a judge immediately intervene and grant her an emergency temporary protective order against Paulo Zampolli. And it's not clear that emergency protective order that Tanya is petitioning the courts for could just be for her against Paulo Zampolli, but it could include a temporary restraining order for her and the minor child. Tanya also almost immediately provided sworn statements that support her filing and her need to have custody on top of additional exhibits. She has also acquired her certificate of merit, which some jurisdictions require when you're filing a lawsuit to prove that your lawsuit is not frivolous and it has merit. It was granted to her, and on the 12th of September, a judge was assigned to her case and a hearing was scheduled. The last update we have is that Paulo Zampolli was served with this lawsuit. So not only is Amanda's mother trying to get custody of the child that Amanda and Paulo share, she is also trying to get an emergency temporary restraining order against Paulo Zampolli. So now we wait for the hearing. Okay, I'm popping in with a voiceover because I found a little bit more while I was editing this video. I found a divorce between Amanda Ungaro and Paulo Zampolli that is still active. It's very, very interesting. So I was going through it, and what I'm seeing is this case immediately started out with Amanda's attorneys filing contempt against Paulo Zampolli. And what was very, very interesting to me above anything else is the fact that the day before Amanda was arrested in Florida, she and her attorneys were filing for child support. They were filing contempt against Paulo. And almost immediately after she was arrested, Paulo Zampolli and his attorneys began filing to modify the custody agreement, the judgment, the order, whatever was decided upon. So we have no response to multiple contempt related documents and motions from Amanda's attorneys, but then as soon as she's arrested, he and his attorneys file to modify child custody, visitation, whatever. So then we start to see more movement within the case, which fingers crossed is a very good sign, that Amanda's fine. But I also noticed same day that Amanda's mother filed for custody of the child that they share, there was a request for the transcripts of this divorce proceeding to be handed over. So I'm wondering if the court transcripts in this case were used as an exhibit in Amanda's mother's petition for custody. But it appears that Amanda's attorneys, the attorneys who are assigned to Amanda, are actively still working, which if Amanda was not alive and well, I don't think would be happening, but it is extremely helpful and provides us a ton of context to know and have it confirmed that at the time that Amanda was arrested and is now off the radar, she was actively going through what seemed like a custody battle that was not amicable with Paulo Zampolli. And it appears that not even a year into this custody battle, Amanda is arrested under very strange circumstances. Immediately, Paulo Zampolli is trying to modify the judgment, the custody order. And about a year into this custody battle, or towards present day, we're seeing Amanda's mother trying to get custody of this child. Amanda's attorneys are still working, which I hope is a good sign. In the filing that Amanda's mother filed over a month ago, Amanda has no attorney listed as representing her, yet does have attorneys representing her on other matters and her custody and divorce with Paulo. It just doesn't make sense. Something is not right. But my biggest takeaway is that things were tumultuous between Amanda and Paulo, and court records show it. So again, huge shout out to my follower who was able to locate this case and find the index number. Amazing work. Thank you so much. So helpful. And while we cannot confirm, still, if Amanda Ungaro is safe or what is going on. We know that at least someone is advocating for that child to ensure that that child is safe. I think no matter what situation Amanda is currently in right now, she would want her child to be safe and protected and loved. I still feel like we're missing so much information, still so much that we don't know, especially about her Miami arrest. So we'll keep an eye on this and I'll keep you guys updated.